Hey guys, I'm Evan. Welcome to Country View Acres. So today it's hay baling day, and to me, I think the hay looks really good. I mean, got a lot of color in it. It's dry, mostly dry. There's a few spots that will be dry if we get another couple hours, but I'm very happy with the amount of hay I think I have out here. We just got to bale it up and find out how much we actually have. So I'm shooting for at least 14 bales, and that'll bring us up to 40 bales, and that's what I want for a minimum for the winter time. So hopefully we can hit that today. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the hay rake back, get the other tractor, and get the hay baler ready. Yes, I know. I need a better storage system for all my implements. So I've got a new spool of twine here for the baler, and you gotta tie the inside twine to the outside twine of this one. And I gotta feed it through this little spot up here, and then that way I don't have to refeed everything. It'll automatically go to the next spool of twine. So the hydraulic level looks good. It's within the operating range. And our gauge, we're sitting at what, 130 pounds, and that's the hydraulic pressure. So this mechanism here controls the bale density. When it first starts baling and when it's doing the very core of the bale, it puts on less pressure. And then once the core gets so big, it increases the pressure and makes it dense the rest of the way through. And this is set to the smallest core diameter. So basically it's set to make the densest bale that it can make. The only way to make it denser is to increase the pressure on the hydraulics. And so far running this machine, I've only made 4.5 foot diameter bales. It'll make a 5 foot diameter, but the bale size sensor wasn't working. That is fixed now. Before, I didn't know what the true bale size was, so I would look through here and try to determine it. And when it filled up, what it looked to be filled up in the chamber, I would tie it and eject it. But there's no markings, there's no scale on the outside of this baler like some do that tell you how big it is. You have to go by that bale monitor. And basically I've been operating blind for the last couple years. And now bale size sensor works. I'm going to try to make a full-size bale today for the first time and see how it does. The hay baler's all greased up and ready to go now. I've got the cables here zip tied there. It then come down. They're zip tied to the side over here, and then they come up. They zip tie right there, and then it goes into the bale monitor. And of course the hydraulic hoses hook up right there. So I've got them routed and secured, hopefully, where we don't have any issues with them. Because if you remember last time, the cable for the brake lights and the turn signals on the back of the hay baler, It got pulled into the PTO shaft with a wad of hay that got wrapped around it, and it pulled out the wiring for the taillights. And it was routed differently. It was a shorter cable, and luckily I don't need that to bale hay, but I'm just making sure that all the other cables are at least secure and out of the way as best as possible. And then I also have the correct shear bolts. These are 1/4 inch shear bolts. They go into the PTO shaft. That's all that keeps this machine running. And I read the manual, and they're supposed to be a grade 5 bolt. I had been using a grade 2 bolt, which is softer, shears more easy, and that's probably why I was having trouble with this shearing bolts, and because I was using too soft of a bolt. Now I've got the one according to the manual. So now that I think about it, there's still one of the number 2, one of the softer shear bolts in there. We probably should go ahead and change it out for one of these before we get started. It'd be easier if I just unhook it. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to go. Well, I don't think it actually made a 5-foot bale. I don't know if it didn't take my setting or what. Ooh, reading a little high. That ain't good. Must have been a bad spot. This is reading low. 14, a little less than 15 there. Well, about 1 out of 20 didn't test good, so there might be just a small bunch of grass in there that's a little bit wet, but overall the bale is good. Well, this one said it was a 5-foot bale. It is almost up to my shoulder, so. That other one just activated instantly. It didn't even give you a warning. It just went to tie-in. I think it must have kicked the max bale size sensor. If it hits that, it just auto ties and stops. Yeah, most of my measurements are 14.5%. That one's 13.8. That one's even drier. 13.5 down there. So yeah, I think that first one I got some of the edge of the field where it's shaded more so that the grass along the edge doesn't dry as quickly, so there might have been a little bit more moisture in that one. But yep, overall these are testing almost perfect. And if you look at these bales, I don't know if the color will show up, but they are a lot of color in them. They look really good. I mean, they're not net wrapped, you know, so they don't look perfectly like a cylinder, but these are definitely some good looking bales, some of the better bales I've ever made. All right, third bale. Once again, it automatically started tying the bale before it hit full size. So I think there's a sensor in here. So this right here is the max bale size sensor, and it's just touching it right there. So one thing I noticed about this bale is it must have got a big wad of hay because it's like egg shaped. You can see it in there, and it kind of wobbles. So I think that wobble caught the max bale size sensor and it kicked it out, thinking that it was too big. I'm gonna go ahead and tweak that a little bit, and the only reason why is because I know I moved it closer because the bale size sensor wasn't working. So I actually made that, or I adjusted that to go off earlier. So I'm gonna adjust it back to where it was when I first got the baler. Yeah, so there's two ways that this baler can auto tie. One is off the bale sensor, and the other one is off of this max bale size. This is kind of like the secondary protection. I had set this since the bale sensor didn't work, but I would always tie it manually before this ever activated. And we'll just I just adjusted it a 1/2 inch. We'll kind of just tweak it until it stops activating and truly goes off the bale size sensor. Or I could just go get a measuring tape and we could measure the bale size. That'd be too easy. I'd have to walk back. So this bale here is the only one I'd really be worried about having moisture in it. This one is along this tree line. Half the bale is from the other field and the other half is from this field. This grass was always in the shade. 15.5. So it's dry, just slightly higher. Right there in the core I hit a 20%. Okay, there's definitely a slug of grass in there that's wet. I got a 30% right there in the core. So yeah, right in the center seems to be the worst. Ugh, that was 29%. So a lot of times in the past, I would leave this very south part of the field till the next day, and then I would rake it out into the sun, and then the next day I would bale it up. I would let this side dry one extra day. I've done that several times. I didn't do that this time. I could always take it and unroll that bale. Untie it, unroll it, and then roll it back up tomorrow. We'll see what kind of energy I got. So I have had a couple problems today baling hay. The first one was I had trouble with it detecting that the door was shut, or open actually. So it would never thought that I would eject a bale. And I'd have to sit there and play with the door, open and close it, and finally got to the point where opening and closing the door didn't even get it to work. So I had to adjust. In here there's a sensor on the door that detects whether it's open, and I had to move that magnet closer. You could fit my pinky in between it. I mean, there was a big gap. So I moved that magnet closer. That seems to be working now. Now my next problem is this new twine that I put in this side. It started feeding earlier. It's been working fine. The other twine, it may have just switched. And I think the knot that I tied like a total of 3 knots on this side. I only tied 1 on the other. The knot that I tied over here didn't pull it all the way through, and it detected that twine not going through. And if we look right here, here is the end of the twine. It's the new twine, and I need to get it fed. Actually, it's caught. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, that's probably enough to break that knot. But I need to get that fed back through the arm that puts it back to the bale. So this bale is tied with at least 1 string, maybe not 2. I may just get that fixed and then retie the entire bale manually and then kick it out. I guess my other question is why it's like this new twine's getting caught. I don't know if that may be a problem with just that spool. Something's going on. All right, well, yeah, I think that new twine at the very beginning of the roll was very, I don't know, stuck together? I don't know. Is that a grease zerk? Hey, I found a grease zerk that I hadn't been greasing. Oh man, this baler's got so many grease zerks, it's ridiculous. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and try to, oh man, there's a bunch of grease right there. I'm gonna go ahead and try to manually get this to tie. I may have to pull forward into a little bit of grass to get it to pull in, but we'll tie it again. I'm gonna try to put a camera up under there so that you can actually see that twine arm go out and it swings back and forth as it wraps the bale. You can see that and understand how it works. All right, looks like the right size bale, just 2 inches below my shoulder, seems to be what it says is a 5-foot bale. It seemed to have fed the twine fine that time. I think it was just stuck at the very beginning of that roll of twine. So hopefully we can bale the rest of this, no problems. All right, I just finished up baling hay, and you can see all of the hay bales out here in the field. That is a beautiful sight. So I ended up with a total of 18 bales. We were shooting for at least a minimum of 14, so we hit what we wanted for winter time. So now anything we bale after that is all extra. I've decided that one bale down there that it's kind of wet in the center, but dry on the outer layer. I've considered unrolling it, but I've decided I'm gonna go ahead and wrap that, and I'm gonna mark it, and I'm gonna see how it turns out, because you know, half is dry and half is a little bit moist. You get that wrapped, it'll be oxygen free, so it shouldn't mold, and hopefully the moisture will even out in there, and it may be fine when we feed it out. It'd be interesting to see how that turns out, because it's not high enough moisture to make silage, but yet it's not dry enough to be hay. It's kind of in that in-between state. But I think I'll do that as an experiment. That'll save me from having to unroll that, because I would have to go pretty much the whole length of this field to get it unrolled. And that's a lot of work. So I've had this Gale baler, I think for, I don't know, this may be my 3rd year with this baler. And I think I finally, we got the bale size sensor fixed. That door sensor has been an issue. We got that adjusted. We got the hay knife, wasn't cutting at the beginning, it was stuck. We got that all freed up. I really think now everything went flawlessly after I got that door sensor adjusted. I mean, the twine, that was just the ball of twine, the roll of twine, I think, the problem with that. But I think the baler itself is now running almost perfectly. I mean, it doesn't have tail lights and brake lights, but everything else, it seems like it's running perfectly. So now I'm back over in the first field, and you can see it's already shady over here. The other field is complete sunshine. This one is surrounded by trees, so it gets shaded early. It's like shaded early in the morning, late in the evening. It just doesn't get as much sunshine as the other field. And that's probably one reason why it doesn't make as much hay as the other field. They are the same size, but that one gets way more sun. But anyway, I think I'm gonna call today. It's like 7 o'clock in the evening. So I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'll haul the bales up front. I'll get them wrapped up and put away. But I'm gonna head in and call it a night. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.